Hello lovely people, I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel. I am here in the book shack. It's Sunday, and for the first time in 3 weeks I thought I'd actually film my Sunday wrap up on a Sunday. So let's get straight into it. I have had a really good week. Lots of lovely things have happened this week. Firstly, I don't know if, well, I probably have mentioned it before. I became a grandmother a couple of years ago. Almost exactly 2 years ago, in fact. And my lovely little grandson, here he is. This is Mason. He's an absolute delight. He's currently on holiday in Cornwall, having a lovely time on the beach. I found out today, no, not today, I found out that I am going to be a grandmother 3 times over by the end of the year, because not one, but both of my daughters are pregnant. One is due at the end of beginning of October, and the other one at the beginning of November. How excited am I? Other things, lovely things that have happened this week. I live here with my husband and my stepson, who is in his early 30s, and he has Asperger's. He is a lovely lad, and he and I share an interest in reading. He trundled up to the local supermarket the other day and came back with this, a present for me. Claire Pooley, How to Age Disgracefully. Now, I don't know what he's trying to say. It's got lovely pink pages, by the way. I don't know what he's trying to say here, but obviously he has a certain opinion about me. However, it was very kind of him to buy me this book, and I shall look forward to reading it. Now, yesterday, I'm trying to clear my workroom and sort out all the things that I've got there. I have a load of things to sort out, to figure out what I've got and what I need, etc., etc. I had literally barricaded myself into this room. It's a tiny room. It's meant to be a bedroom, but you'd be hard pushed to get a single bed in there. It's that small. And I had sat myself down in the middle of the floor and was piling things up as I sorted through them before I put them away again. And there's a knock at the door, and Phil opens the door. I hear him say thank you, and then he yells up the stairs, "What have you ordered now?" And I said, "Nothing. At least I don't think I have." He said, "This is definitely a book, and quite a big one." And I said, "I'm sure I haven't ordered any books." He said, "Well, it's definitely a book." I said, "Well, I can't get out at the moment. I am stuck in this room." So anyway, he brought it upstairs, and I opened it, and inside was this. Julia Frey. She's written a biography, quite a big biography, of Toulouse-Lautrec. And inside, this fell out. This, spoiler alert, spoiler safety training from Dr. Cranky Pants, certificate of completion. And then I found this. Isn't that lovely? Lovely postcard. And it's from my lovely friend Alan at Alan's Reads. He and I buddy read I Am Pilgrim at the beginning of April. And we both agreed it probably wasn't something we'd read again, although we both enjoyed it. He took it to his little free library, and he'd just seen the video that I put out on Tuesday about me wanting to read, to meet Toulouse-Lautrec. And he found this fabulous book in his free library and very kindly swapped it for I Am Pilgrim and promptly sent it to me. How lovely is that? What lovely, lovely people you find on BookTube. Thank you, Alan. I am very grateful. And I'm also very grateful for the 2 new bookmarks. I can't decide whether I want to save that for the September art event or whether I want to read that now. Not sure. Watch this space. Now, I put out a video on Thursday, I think, where I tried to justify my existence, having been out and bought several new books, second-hand books, second books at the second-hand shop that were new to me, and also a couple of ebooks. And I tried to make out a case for it not being my fault, it being the fault of BookTube. There was mixed judgment, shall we say. Many people, unbelievably, found me guilty. One of them, Gavin at Genre Books, was even thinking about the death sentence, which personally I think is a bit harsh. Other people who found me guilty said a way to pay reparation for my crimes of book buying was to actually read the books. I felt compelled. So first up this week, Jon Krakauer, Into the Wild. This is a book about a young lad who was in his early 20s, who in April 1992 went on this road trip on his own. He had a dream of living off the grid. He had been out of contact with his parents for some time, a couple of years, and he had been floating up and down the country, living the life of a hobo, getting jobs where he could. He decided he was heading to Alaska. 4 months later, he was found dead in the wilds in Alaska, not actually that far from civilization. He'd starved to death, and left quite a poignant note asking for help. This book charts his journey, and it tries to pick him up when he was at university, and then follow the trail of where he did once he was estranged from his parents, which was like immediately after graduation. His parents came to his graduation, and then he disappeared off the face of the earth. Jon Krakauer tries to figure out where he was and what he did during those years, and then follows the trail to Alaska to try and figure out what happened to him. I remember this being in the news because it was in the news worldwide. He was an idealist and also probably a fantasist, but he wanted to live life the way he felt it ought to be lived. Also interspersed in this book is some biographical details about Krakauer himself, because actually he had a strange affinity with Chris McCandless, and for a while he could possibly have done the same thing. He used to go off on adventures, much against the advice of his parents. He was vaguely estranged from his parents. But it's a really good book, really good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have also been continuing to read Common Ground by Rob Cowen. This is one that was recommended by Alan at Alan's Reads, and he did a series of 4 videos recommending his favourite books about the natural world, and he's a freelance biologist, so I thought he must know what he's talking about. This one he's mentioned several times over the course of some months. It is absolutely lovely, and it's about a guy who is living actually not a million miles away from me, and he finds this patch of land that is between town and city, the sort of thing. It had an old railway going through it, and it's now just it's a dump site and it's overgrown, and it's how he looks at this small piece of land with microscopic detail to find out what's there, and it's like opening your eyes to all those pieces of scrapland that you walk past or you drive past with no thought as to what's going on in there. And the abundance of wildlife. And he writes beautifully. It's absolutely lovely. I am loving this book. I also finished this week Hiromi Kawakami, Strange Weather in Tokyo. I absolutely love Japanese fiction. And I don't know whether it's just the type of Japanese fiction that I read, but they always have a sort of out of world feeling to them. Certainly the ones I've read, and I'm talking, Haruki Murakami, Sweet Bean Paste by Dorian Sukagawa. This is a love story. And while I will still maintain that I'm not a great lover of romance books, it's not romance, it's a love story. And I think there's a difference. This is about a woman called Tsukiko, yes, who, she's in her 30s. She's got a job. She doesn't have a partner. She's a bit of a loner. She spends her evenings drinking. In a bar one evening, she plonks herself down and she finds herself sitting next to a guy who was a teacher at her school many years ago. And he is now in his later years. He's over retirement age. And they chat. And they meet up every so often, occasionally, in the same bar, not by design, but just by accident. And they drink together, although they pay for their own drinks themselves. And this is a long, slow trickle of a story about how, I say long, it's not that long, about how they develop a relationship. And it's not always plain sailing, because sometimes they don't talk to each other for months. It's beautiful. It's just a lovely, lovely story. And there's something almost dreamlike about it. I will certainly read this author again. I will probably read this book again. At the suggestion of Angelia, actually, it wasn't her suggestion. She has said she's been reading poems every day. And I thought, that's a really good idea. Let's start off your day with some poetry. So this is a Penguin classic, the Penguin Book of Modern African Poetry. I'm loving this. I'm loving this for a couple of reasons. It's a really nice way to start the day, apart from Thursdays when I listen to Pat at Book Chat with Pat do her Poetry Thursday while I have my coffee. I've just been reading a couple of a day, and the way it's split up is that it's ordered by country. And so let's go back and see what countries we have. Here we go, alphabetical order of countries. So we start with Angola. I've read the poets from Angola, Benin, Botswana, Cameroon, Cape Verde Islands, Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Gambia, Ghana. I'm midway through Ghana at the moment, I think. Yes, midway through Ghana. But they're all so different. Now, this is a way to check off an awful lot of African countries on my read around the world, because I have, on my key here, I have a section for poetry. So I will be adding, Africa was looking pretty sparse on my reading. So I will be adding a lot of dots with pink marks on them for this. I'm guessing I'll probably finish this next week. These are another two of the books I purchased this week, which I have been sentenced to reading. John Polidori's The Vampyre and Other Stories of the Macabre. This is an Oxford World Classic. And Susan Hill's The Travelling Bag. Both of these, because it's horror mayhem, I thought these would be perfect. Although this says John Polidori on the front, The Vampyre is in fact the only story in here that is by him. And you have another 13 stories that aren't by him. It seems a bit unfair to just put him on the cover. I loved The Vampyre. I thought it was great. I have also read in here Sir Guy Eveling's Dream by Horace Smith. I don't think I've read any Horace Smith before. Actually, I hadn't read any John Polidori before either. And then I read, it wasn't the next one in the list, it was further down. James Hogg, Some Terrible Letters from Scotland. Now, these are all different. John Polidori wrote this story in the same competition that Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. I think he was probably rather overshadowed by her. But it's a good vampire story. And it's about this young man who is going off to do a grand tour, as they did in those days. And he teams up with this guy that he only vaguely knows and goes off with him. Then he discovers that the man is a serious reprobate. So he dumps him and goes off with someone else. In fact, he receives a letter from home saying this man is a reprobate, dump him at all costs and go off on your own, which he does. But things happen. His family is involved, and then he realizes just quite what he's been traveling with. Sir Guy Eveling's Dream is completely different. This is the one by Horace Smith. Sir Guy Eveling himself is a bit of a reprobate, and he spends his time gambling and playing around with various women that he shouldn't be playing around with, etc., etc. Then he has this vision of this woman at the end of his bet. He's convinced it's real. Everybody else is convinced it's a dream. His sister is trying to persuade him to marry, settle down, behave himself occasionally, and he decides that the only woman he's going to marry is this particular woman. Anyway, he runs into her. But all is not as it seems. The final one of these I read, James Hogg, Some Terrible Letters from Scotland. This is 3 letters that have been written to your imagined narrator, and each of them is from someone who has died from cholera. And it's just quite gripping and quite disturbing. The great thing about these is they're from different decades. Now, all of the stories in the book range from the mid-1810s up to the end of the 1830s. I think 1838 is the latest one. So the three I've read were from 1816, one in the 1820s and one in the 1830s. So that ticks off some decades. And then I've moved to this, The Travelling Bag by Susan Hill, for something that is much more recent than 1830. And in here there are 5, I don't know what you want to call them, short novellas or long short stories. At the moment, the only one I've read is The Printer's Devil Court, which is at the back and takes up, it's just over 80 pages long. No, it's almost 90 pages long. But these are great as well. So what am I planning for next week? Who knows? Who knows? I will read some more short stories because I am enjoying both of these. So I shall probably finish both of these off. And I also want to read Common Ground. Other than that, the world is my oyster. And so I shall read what I like. Is that it for my reading report? I think it probably is. Oh, no, it's not. I'm continuing to read Finnegan's Wake. I have caught up now after having a bit of a blip at the end of April. So I've caught up and I'm really enjoying, not only am I enjoying reading it, even though I don't understand it at all, I'm enjoying listening to it. And the listening, it's like almost like you're absorbing this atmosphere. I still don't understand what's going on. I don't think I am destined to understand, in the normal sense of the word, this book, but I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. I adore his wordplay. And I was listening to it the other day while I was doing something else and giggling because some of it's so funny. And I am so glad that Roy from Roy Reads Anything decided to instigate this. Now, with the reading, I have been sticking to, we're reading bits of it. So we started with 1.5 and then went on to 1.7. But with the listening, I'm listening to the whole thing because I don't want to be jumping backwards and forwards through bits. And I mean, you may know this book starts in the middle of a sentence. So I don't think it matters where you start and finish it. But it's so musical, even without the fact that the narrator has an Irish accent. Even if he didn't have an Irish accent, the words are like a song in your head almost. I'm just really enjoying it. And that really is it for this week. Yes, thank you for stopping by. I don't know what I'm up to next week, but it'll involve more videos and it'll involve more reading. So have a lovely week. Let me know what you've been reading and thank you for visiting. It's always lovely to see you. Take care and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.